Hello, happy Thursday. Hard to believe it is the last Thursday already in January. This is quite the week in the markets. We've got GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, AMC as kind of the talk of the markets here this week. We had huge companies earnings data come out, and we had the Fed talk just yesterday on Wednesday to just kind of pile it all on. So we are going to get into it a lot this week and really appreciate you joining us as always. My name is Brandon Steele, financial planner with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue. We hope this is helpful. We're going to come to you each and every week and just share some insights into some of the market news of the week. So if this is helpful, please do follow us or subscribe and make sure to catch up each week Thursday at 3. So, this week is just crazy. Personally, I'm kind of, it's kind of some nostalgia kicking in for me with this GameStop thing. It reminds me of going to Blockbuster when I was younger and, going in there like once a week. I think we went in to go rent a movie and kind of have a family night. GameStop, for whatever reason, kind of reminds me of Blockbuster. So it's bringing back some memories for me. We're already at the last Thursday, believe it or not, in January. Had this kind of slow burn up all month here in the markets, but I hope that you're making the most out of 2021 so far. Already a month down, so hopefully you've been able to take advantage. So the biggest thing, and I'm going to address this right out of the gate, that I think is on everyone's mind is this whole craziness with the GameStop stocks, AMC, Tootsie Roll. I think Silver is the latest. These different companies where we've seen this kind of Reddit surge and social media sharing and a huge spike in these companies' stock prices. So I'm sure you have heard of this. It's not just an industry thing anymore. This is, everybody is talking about it. And it's really interesting. I mean, what it does is it sheds some light in some very inefficient areas of the market and some areas that probably need some addressing. We had these hedge funds that were over 100% short on these stocks in the first place. And now we've got this kind of crowdsourcing, almost crowdfunding of that stock, of purchasing, of going long that stock. And it's just driven these guys out of these hedge funds, out of that position. Obviously, a lot of people have made a lot of money on these stocks in a very short period of time. And now here we are on Thursday. Robinhood was, I think, the first one. I think E-Trade even did it to some degree, are limiting the ability to sell those positions. So now we're getting to a point where a lot of those individual investors who may have been a little late, maybe a little greed kicked in, or a little fear of missing out, are now stuck, right? A lot of people are really getting hurt right now in just that quick of a period. So it's been crazy to watch, and I think that there may be some legal fallout of all of this. Potentially, I am not an attorney, so this is not my area of expertise by any means. But obviously, there was some price manipulation to some degree through this, and so it'll be really interesting to see how all this shakes out, not only in the coming day or hour or month, but in the year ahead. And something worth following. I mean, it's been entertaining to say the least. And obviously something needs to be done about it because, there's more stocks that are kind of falling into these categories too each day. So pay attention to that. Obviously this will still be a story next week, so I'll kind of pick up on that. But I do want to switch gears here a little bit. Although I know that's the talk of the town, I do want to focus on what's really going on in the markets too, because the media has loved this. We've heard all about it, and a lot of the other stuff has kind of like slipped under the radar because this is what everybody wants to hear about. But I do want to touch on some things. Tuesday, we had consumer confidence come out. This was pretty much in line with expectations, so not a whole lot of surprise there. Wednesday, though, we had a lot. Not only was all this GameStop stuff going on, but we had Apple, Tesla, and Boeing all report earnings. Tuesday, we also had Microsoft. And Apple's earnings were just amazing. Now, the expectations were really, really high. But then we have Tesla and Boeing that kind of came a little bit short, still showing some good guidance moving forward. But it was a big week as far as earnings reports goes. And, maybe had some impact in some of the markets that we saw, especially Wednesday, we saw a little decline. On top of that, we had the Fed come out and talk. As you know, if you pay attention to these weekly updates, the Fed is, I mean, they're doing so much right now that there is a lot of control of the markets that's happening based on some of the programs that are in place. So anytime that they're up, it's important to pay attention. Basically, they said keeping rates unchanged. They're continuing to buy, I think it's about $120 billion worth of bonds every month until, I think the word was substantial further progress. All that sounds like they aren't making changes, but somewhere kind of slipped in was that they are slowly potentially getting out of the overnight kind of repo market. So there may not be a whole lot to that on the surface. And I'm still not quite sure how to digest it, but it's interesting to hear that because that is kind of the first thing that we've heard of them pulling back a little bit. And it's possible that maybe that's their way of slowly dipping their toes so that they can get some of these programs unwound. I don't expect any of this stuff to happen tomorrow, but as we've talked about before, with all the Fed has done, they can't just rip off the Band-Aid because the markets will have a fit. And so I think what they'll do is they'll slowly kind of unleash some information like this and work their way out of what they've kind of created there. So pay attention to that. It'll be really interesting to see. It's not something I expect next Fed meeting necessarily, but maybe it'll be a slow burn as we look forward there. And it's funny, even with all that, we didn't really hear anything about it because of the GameStop craziness. But it does have an impact. Even just the repo market part of it will have a slight slowing of how much money is in the system. I didn't say a decline in the money in the system, a slight slowing, which is really not saying a lot with how much money we are putting in the economy right now. The Fed's balance sheet will decrease slightly, and it's possible this has some sort of effect on credit as well. So there are some impacts of what's going on there. And then today we had initial jobless claims. They came out at about 847,000 jobs lost, just a little better than expectations, which is good because it's been on the other side of that equation for the last few weeks or so. I think, here in Washington, we opened up for indoor dining, and I think gyms are open, some things like that on Thursday last week. So I think, we're getting back a little bit, and hopefully that will mean good things for the jobs market. Next week's crazy too. We're still gonna have some fallout of all this Reddit, Robinhood trading stuff going on. But coming up, we'll talk next Thursday about personal income, consumer spending, and inflation. But next week we also have the ADP employment and the non-farm payrolls numbers coming out for the month of January. As you know, last month that was very disappointing. So it will be very interesting to see what comes out of the January data as we look into jobs. So with that, again, hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions for us, you want to see us cover anything different or join, or chime in for your question of the week, you can email us info@mainsailfg.com. Again, info@mainsailfg.com. And please do follow us, subscribe if this is helpful so you can catch us each and every week. I am inches away from getting the book finished. If you have heard that, I'm super excited. I wrote a book about really all the areas to address when we talk about retirement, and especially for those a little closer to retirement planning, around tax strategies, around some of the ins and outs of creating income. We have quite a few people who have signed up, but we are still giving away the first 100 copies for free and putting your name into a drawing for a free financial plan. So if you do want the book, reach out. Again, first 100 people who claim their free copy of the book will also be kind of thrown into a pool for the free plan all the way through the process, A to Z. So really excited about that. We're getting really close. With that, let's move into the question of the week, which might be a little bit in the weeds, but I think it's important. Had a client that had asked me about SPACs. And I'm not sure if you've heard of that in the past, but a SPAC is basically a way of getting into IPOs with more of a pooled investment type of strategy as opposed to directly buying into it. The interesting thing, so the question was just kind of like, what are they and how do they work? Where I want to take this question a little bit is the interesting thing about this, and I think what also is kind of coming out of all this GameStop stock information or stock news, is it just seems a little, there are a lot of there's so much money in the economy and so much going on that it seems like things are getting a little out of whack. How these SPACs work is you can basically invest in IPOs, but you have no idea what you're really buying a lot of times. So it's really interesting that these have become so popular, because to buy into a company that you have no idea what you're buying, what their profits are, what the company is even about, a lot of times when we start seeing these things is when we get late in a cycle. You pile that on with what we're seeing with the all the stuff around GameStop and all that good stuff. It's just a lot of euphoria out there and a lot of people investing, feeling like everything just goes up and up and up, which has kind of been the case. Obviously, at some point that changes. And so I'm not saying I have a huge concern for the markets right now, but it is something to pay attention to when we get this level of just like not caring what we're actually buying and just knowing that it's going to work. I shouldn't say knowing, thinking it's going to work is where we start to get into a lot of trouble. And these SPACs and what's going on with the GameStop stock is, maybe an indication of that. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you as always for joining us here this week. We hope that you have a good upcoming weekend, and we will see you same place, same time next Thursday at 3 p.m. If you do have any questions, email us info@mainsailfg.com. You can also claim your book there as well, or reach out to me directly. Thank you and have a good evening.